Hey y'all, hey, it's Mrs. Yao, and I'm back with a new unit for reading starting this week. So for the next few weeks, we're going to be working on something called text features. So what are text features and how do they help readers? So text features give us information in a nonfiction text and they make the text, which is a passage or a book, easier for us to understand. So let's remember nonfiction means that it is real. So if you read a nonfiction book, you're reading it to learn things and you're reading real information. So text features will help us to understand information and different things that you will see in a nonfiction text. They'll help us to understand it better. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going through some different text features, and each of my slides have an example of a text feature. And at the end of going through all of the examples, I'm actually going to show you a real book from Raz Kids and show you some different examples of the text features in the story that we talk about. Okay? All right, so let's get started. So our first text feature is called a title page. It's the first page inside a book that tells the title, the author, the publisher, that different kind of information. So when you first open your book, it's usually the very first page. So here's an example. This one's a book about frogs written by Melanie Amphibian and illustrated by Philip Tadpole. And then it has the publisher and the year that it was published down at the bottom. All right. Our next feature is called a table of contents. I know you guys have seen this because in the stories that you've been doing with Miss Bolivar in phonics, you've seen the table of contents at the beginning of the stories, The Cat Bandit, and our new book. So we've used these several times. A table of contents tells the headings or the chapters and the page numbers of each section of the book. So this example in the book about frogs tells the different chapters and the page number that you can turn to find that chapter. All right, and our next one. Sorry, my people are going in and out the door. Let me silence this really fast. Okay, our next one is called an illustration. An illustration is just a hand-drawn picture or image that will help the reader visualize and understand something in the text. So this frog is a picture that someone actually drew. It's not a picture that was taken with a camera. It's an actual picture someone drew. So that's an illustration. A photograph is an image or a picture that was made with a camera and shows you how things look in real life. So this is a real picture of someone holding a frog in their hand. All right, a caption. These are very important. I've seen lots of my friends reading and they will skip over the caption when they see a picture and they don't know what's happening in the picture because they skip over it. Captions are words that are underneath or next to an image or a picture that explains more information. So in this picture, when I first look at it, I have no idea what this is, except for I do see a frog. But since I can read the caption underneath it, it explains to me that this tiny frog is sitting on a bicycle seat. When I first saw that, I had no idea that that was a bicycle seat. But once I read the caption, that told me what was happening in the picture. So never, ever, ever skip over those captions because it will tell you important information that sometimes is not within the words of the text. So you have to use your text feature in order to learn that information. All right, keywords. Keywords are new or important words in the text that are usually bold, which means this dark print that's darker than the other different print that you see, or they may be in italics. Italics means that they slant the words to help you know that that's an important word, or they may be colored, so different colors of print. So like for instance, this right here, the title keywords, That's in colored print. It's in green print. It's not black like we're used to seeing. Or you may see a word that is underlined in your story. All of those different examples, bold words, italics, colored print, and underlined words are all going to be key words. So they're very important for you to pay attention to. Okay. Now here's just some other examples of bold print, just so you get another example of what it looks like within a text. So you can see that sun, orbit, and sunspots are all darker print than the rest of the black print. All right, labels. Labels tell the name of certain parts of the photograph or an illustration. So for example, this is a frog's eye, and I can see that this orange part is the iris. The black part is the pupil. And I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but this part right here is called the sclera. I hope I said that right. I don't know my frog eye parts, so I apologize if I mispronounced that. But labels you will see sometimes in different photographs or illustrations on what we call, the next slide, a diagram. A diagram is an image, so it could be a picture, or it could, it could be an illustration, or it could be a photograph, and it shows the important parts of the object. So this label was showing us the parts of the frog's eye, and this was actually a diagram of that frog's eye, but this diagram is actually the parts of the frog. So this is an illustration because someone drew it, and the eyes are pointing, the label eyes are pointing to the frog's eyes. The back, this label is telling us where the hind legs are, and this label is telling us where the front legs are. So when you have a picture or a photograph with labels pointing to the parts of the picture, it's telling us that that is a diagram and what the different parts of that diagram are. All right, this one's one of Miss Yale's favorites because anybody that knows me knows that I love to be organized and I love making lists. To make my list, I always make bullets. Bullets are used to organize information into lists. So this list is a list of different kinds of amphibians, so amphibian types, and each new little dot represents something in that list. So a frog is an amphibian type, a toad, a newt, a salamander, and a Sicilian. I might have pronounced that one wrong too, but each one of those are different parts of a list. So when you see a bullet, you're going to usually see a dot. Sometimes your bullet might be a number, sometimes it might be a square, but each new thing in your list is going to have some kind of marker in front of it to show that it's a part of your list, and that's a bullet. All right, an index. An index is an alphabetical listing of the subjects, the people, and the places that are all found in the text. An index is usually at the very end of your text or your book. And when you turn to that index, don't get confused. An index is not the same as a glossary, which we're going to talk about next. An index is just going to tell you different words that are in the book, and it's going to list every single page in the book where you can find that word. So for example, in the frog book that we've been talking about, amphibian, if I want to find the word amphibian, I can turn to my index. I'm going to look for the A section, find the word amphibian, and beside it, it tells me I can turn to page 1 through 3, page 14, page 24, and all of those pages have the word amphibian on them. All right, what if I wanted to know about tadpoles? If I wanted to find the word tadpole, I'm going to go to the T section of my index and find the word tadpole, and it tells me that on page 17, it's going to talk about tadpoles or teach me about tadpoles. Okay, so remember, an index is not the same thing as a glossary. A glossary is an alphabetical list of the newer important words and definitions from your book. So what I like to think of a glossary is I like to think of it as a little mini dictionary. So it's not like the big dictionary where you go look up all your words, and any word that you want to know the meaning of, you can find it there. A glossary is only going to have words in it that are from the book or the text that you're reading. So if I wanted to know what amphibian means, and I didn't know that before I read my story, I can turn to my glossary and find the word amphibian, and it's going to tell me it's a small, cold-blooded animal that spends part of its life cycle in water and part of its life cycle on land. It hatches in water and breeds with gills, then develops lungs as an adult. Now, I'm going to go back up just a little bit. Remember how we talked about, where'd it go? Remember how we talked about the key words? Usually, when you have a bold word in your story, like species or amphibians, that usually means that it's a vocabulary word, and you can usually find that word in your glossary at the back of your book. So see, this, obviously they couldn't put the whole entire glossary on this page because it's probably a longer book since it has several chapters to it. But remember how I showed you in that keyword passage that it said the word amphibians? When I go to the glossary for this book, there's the word amphibian. So a glossary is only going to have words from the specific book that you are reading. It's not going to have any words in it from other books that are not in this text. Okay? All right, the next one is called a heading. So a heading tells the reader what that section of the text is about. So if I'm reading the story about frogs, my heading, when I get to like a new chapter, this one's called All About Frogs. That is my heading. So that means everything on these pages from now until I get to the next heading, they're all going to be about frogs. So underneath that, we're going to talk about the next part, but adaptability and response to environment, those two things are both talking about giraffes, pigs. No, they're talking about frogs, because remember, our heading says it's all about frogs. So this is the adaptability and response to environment for frogs. So that is my heading, okay? And you'll see that it's kind of like a little title for your section that you're in. Now, notice how adaptability and response to environment, those are two new sections underneath All About Frogs. Those are what we call subheadings. A subheading is a secondary heading used to divide the subject into more specific subcategories. So remember, we're talking all about frogs in this section, but in the first part of that section, we're going to we're going to talk about adaptability. So that is my subheading. My next subheading is where we're going to talk about response to environment. Okay, so you won't always see subheadings. In fact, I think the book that I have today doesn't really have subheadings in it. I couldn't find a very good example to show you. But you will see lots of headings. Subheadings are not quite as common in books that we read. All right, another text feature is called a map. A map is just a picture that shows the location of things or places. So this particular map is where the blue parts are showing us something, the light blue parts and the pink parts are showing us something. That it tells you right here, it has a label for it. But the map is about northern cricket frogs, and that's the technical name for it. But the map is telling us where we can find those northern cricket frogs. Okay? A graph, you guys have probably seen a graph before, and they're not just for math, because I know a lot of you are thinking, wait a minute, that's math. Well, sometimes you'll see a graph in a nonfiction text that you're reading. A graph is going to show you information in a visual way so that it's more easily able to be understood by readers. So, for example, if we were talking about the animals in a pond, I would know by looking at this graph that in that pond they found 2 snakes. They found 11 turtles, 3 ducks, 10 frogs, and 6 fish, all in that one pond. Okay, so a graph is going to break things down into different categories, and it's going to give you a number to show how many there are of that object. All right, a chart or table is going to give you information shown in a visual way, and it's often used to compare some type of data. Remember, data are numbers. So, for example, this is called a pie chart, and it shows us the national frog extinction threat. So this is an extinction threat, this is a near threat, this is insufficient data, and this is no threat. And this probably doesn't mean much to you at this point what those different topics mean. But just know that this data is being compared to this data. I can look at this and see that this is bigger, it's a bigger section than this small blue section. And so I can compare those two. You also may see a table. A table is going to have a title at the top, and it's going to be broken up into different boxes usually to show you different information. And I'm not going to dare try to pronounce all of these words right here, but I can see this first category has 6,221 species, but my third category only has 191 species. So I can compare and see what the difference is and contrast between those two objects. So you'll see lots of different charts and tables in your stories, and I will actually show you some examples of those today. Okay, a timeline. A timeline is a diagram that shows important events in chronological order. Chronological order, what does that mean, Miss Yao? That just means that they take things and they put them in the order in which they happened. So, for example, if we're talking about the frog growth cycle, between 6 and 9 days, the egg is fertilized. Between 7 and 10 days, a tadpole hatches. At 4 weeks, the tadpole begins to swim. Between 6 and 9 weeks, the gills disappear. At 12 weeks, the legs sprout. And between 12 and 16 weeks, the body enlarges and tail shortens. And then after that, the growth cycle is complete. Now notice how it starts in order and it doesn't skip around. So it doesn't go 6 to 9 days and then 12 to 16 weeks and then back to 4 weeks. It's going to happen in the order in which it's supposed to happen. So for example, if I was given the chronological order for when I had my 2 children, I could say that Carson, my oldest son, was born in 2006, and then I had Blake, my youngest son, in 2009. So those are my chronological orders. Okay, a sidebar. A sidebar is additional information related to the topic or picture that's usually located at the side of the page. So I'm reading all about the amazing amphibian, the frog, on this page right here. Well, I read the text, and then sometimes they're going to throw in a did you know, which is like just an extra bonus fact that you would like to know. That's pretty cool. So like on this one, it says, did you know? And then it lists the fact. A lot of times you'll see that did you know, but sometimes it may be like a title and then give you other different facts. So this is called a sidebar because it's not part of the actual text. It's an extra piece of information. All right, so the others I'm not going to go through today. There's special less common text features that we may get to towards the end of our unit, like as a bonus. But what I want to do is I want to quickly show you a book This is actually a book on Raz Kids. Oops, Missy, I should have went back to the beginning of the book before I started. Sorry. This is actually a book on Raz Kids. It's under level V. So if you decide that this looks interesting to you and you'd like to read it, it's called The Last Great Race, and it's under level V in Raz Kids. All right, so remember, this is the title page. That's a text feature, and it's going to tell you the title of the book and the author and if there's an illustrator. This is a table of contents, so I can look to see what page I want to find information on. So if I didn't have time to read the whole story and I just wanted to learn about mushers, I could turn to page 15. This is a photograph because it's a picture that was taken with a camera, and then I can look under the photograph and see that it has a caption that tells me a musher and sled dog team in the wilderness. So if I didn't know what this was, I could look at the caption and that would tell me that that's a musher and sled dog team. All right, and here is another photograph with another caption. Look here, guys. That looks like a title. However, remember, we're reading a book. The title is called The Last Great Race. So remember, if you get to a part of your book that has what looks like a title, it's really called a heading. Okay? Then I see some bold words, diphtheria and serum. I don't know what those words mean, so I'm hoping this book's going to have a glossary at the end so I can look up what those words mean. But know that they're bold, so they're important. Okay, oh, look, there's one of those fact boxes. Remember when I was showing you the sidebar and it says, did you know? Look at that. Do you know? Almost the same exact thing. So that's like an extra little fact, like a bonus fact that I wouldn't have learned unless I read that sidebar. Okay, and then here we have a photograph with another caption. Here's another heading, another photograph, another caption, another heading, so it's a new topic. There's another bold word, another photograph, another caption. Oh, here is a map, and this is all about the Iditarod Trail. So it shows me where the Iditarod Trail is. Okay, here is a photograph and a caption. Another photograph and another caption. Another photograph and another caption. That's the good thing about nonfiction books is you're going to see lots of photographs. And here's another bold word, so that should probably be in the glossary. Here's another sidebar with another bonus fact. Here is another heading, so I know this is the musher topic that I was looking at earlier. Do you remember what this was called? This is called a table. So it's almost like a timeline also. So this is a table of the Iditarod winners since 1973. But if you look, all these years are going in order. They don't get out of order. So it's kind of like a timeline too. So it tells me who the winner was that year. And then it goes to the next year all the way up to 2012. And here's another sidebar, another heading, so a new part of the book. And I have another photograph and caption. Do you remember what this is called? It's a keyword and it's in bold. Here's another, what is it called? Tell your friend. That's right, a sidebar. Now check this out. This one is a photograph, but it doesn't have a caption. So I wonder if I read the do you know, if that would tell me about what's happening in the photograph. I would have to read it to find out. Okay, another photograph, another caption, another photograph and caption, and here is a bold keyword. Here's another table. And here's another caption and photograph and another heading to tell me I'm getting to the conclusion of the book. Here's some more headings. Oh, look, here we go. Here's a subheading. So here's a heading, explore more. Underneath it is a subheading to tell me this stuff is going to be on the internet. And here's another subheading to tell me that this stuff is going to be at the library. Didn't realize that was there before. Glad I found that. All right, and then here is a glossary. So remember some of those words? Remember, I didn't know what diphtheria or serum was? Well, I could always turn to the glossary in the back of the book as I'm reading and look at the definition. So that way I understand what I'm reading. All right, and we've made it to the end of the book. Okay, boys and girls, so when you are doing your work, remember, I'm not expecting you to remember every single one of these text features. So there is a text feature anchor chart to tell us what text features are. And then there's another anchor chart in your slideshow that gives some examples of what those text features are, all those different ones that we've talked about today. All right, friends, I'm excited about this unit. I will see you soon. Have a great day. I'll see you when I see you. Bye.